Well, good morning. It was wonderful to worship with you this morning. What an exciting time that we're in. It is. I'm so happy to the opportunity to be with you here. My name is Nate. I'm the campus pastor, and this is a cool series. The greatest fight that you will ever fight. Boy, it's just. I feel like it's coming at the appropriate time for the right messages at the right time that we need to hear. Because here's the reality that we face, friends, is that we do have an enemy in this world that does not want us to live out our God-given possibilities, to utilize the God-given talents that he's given us. And we have an enemy that would love to snuff all of that out. And if we're not aware of that, we just idly walk through this world confused as to when we get a sucker punch out of nowhere. Where did that come from? And the reality is that it comes from the enemy, it comes from the devil, Satan. It's a very real thing. And so this series is really all about addressing that, the spiritual fights that we find ourselves in, because there is a battle every single day over us, and we get the opportunity to fight on the winning team, which is incredible. And so we're using the theme of boxing. Because I think when you look at boxing and you step back and you look at how it's built and whatnot, you can see life smack dab in the middle of it. And I'm excited today that I get the opportunity to talk to you about the theme, or the topic that I have today. And so here's something that I think that we can all relate to for the most part, is that when we are in the greatest fight of our lives, we have the tendency to put our heads down and just get after it. We find ourselves, and what ends up happening is we find ourselves wore out, lonely, and if we're not careful, embittered. Because we just work through it. We just do it. And I'm here to tell you that I've got my own personal illustration that I want to share with you. I don't know if you have realized this yet or not, but I am a man. That was a great response. My wife in the front row says, "Yes, you are." See y'all. Yes, I am a man, I'm a husband, and I am a father. And humbly and transparently, I stand before you and I admit that I have pride issues in my life. I have these... What I believe to be, because that I am a man, a husband, and a father, but I have these pride issues, but also ultimately what it comes down to, I have pride issues because of my own choices, my own decisions. And to illustrate this, I want to share with you transparently that there are times that around my home, even around the church and around life in general, there are projects that need to be done. And I sometimes, many times, I operate with the idea that if you want to get it done right, you have to. You're right. I tend to operate under that, and failingly, embarrassingly, I do that, and ultimately, it turns out into an embarrassing result, because what ends up happening during that time, especially at home, is that I turn into, when I'm putting my head down and just doing these projects on my own, I turn into the bitter old man who's muttering to himself, who's complaining, and ultimately is probably giving some dirty looks. And what is really bad about it is that the ones that I love the most, that love me the most, end up not wanting to be around me. And that's a problem. And I think I'm probably not alone in this, but maybe I am. Because maybe you're here today and you're like, thank goodness that he's talking about that, because I'm nothing like that. And I don't think I'm alone in that, but I don't think that that's the only path that we have to take when it comes to that. In fact, I know from a fact that there's other paths that I take as well too. Another path that I can sometimes take and perhaps you do too, is that things don't get finished because I don't ask for help. It doesn't happen. It doesn't get to where it needs to get to. I keep it to myself. That's when it comes to a standstill, and that's sometimes where pride rises up. It rises up and everything comes to this standstill because I don't want people to know that I don't know how to do that. But the result is the same as it would be the other ways. I turn into bitter and I'm lonely. And to add into that, I'm shameful because nothing's getting completed. Listen, the reality that we have to face is that if I'm unwilling to allow people into my everyday normal uncertainties, failings, and weaknesses, if I'm unwilling to allow people into that, how much more unwilling am I to allow people into the internal uncertainties that I have, the internal failings that I have, the weaknesses that I have internally and spiritually. Like, how much more unwilling will I be to allow them into those things? And so I will put my head down and continue on. And once again, maybe you're here today and you feel like you can't relate to any of this, and you can walk away feeling a whole lot better because you're nothing like me. And I'm happy to make you happy today. But I think more relate than they don't to this. And so really, to get around it, to put it quite simply, is that we are not made to do this alone. Today, the message that I get to speak about, the topic that I get to speak about, the question that I get to ask you is this, is who's in your corner? Who do you have that has your back? Who are your people? In every way, shape, and form, we are meant to be here for one another. That is a truth that we see through and through when it comes to Scripture. Now, today, as I was preparing for this and beginning to consider what does this look like to really tackle this, what are some examples within Scripture that it looks like, and where my mind went to, where my heart went to, was the life of Moses. Moses, that we understand, is the hero that led the Israelite nation through the wilderness. Went into Egypt with God's power and help, softened the Pharaoh's heart, and then was able to lead his people out of slavery and into freedom, into the wilderness. And through all kinds of incredible things, his people end up in the promised land. But I think it's important that we consider this. And one of the pieces that really stuck out to me is in Genesis chapter 17. And before I get to that, though, I think it's important for us to note that when we think of that Israelites and their escape from slavery, when we do think about that, I think oftentimes we think about God's power in that, but we look at Moses and we think of him as this singular individual who did this, who led these people through the wilderness. That he was on his own, that it was just him putting his head down. And to the shame to his own shame, all of these people would fail time and time and time again. But when we really rewind and look at these passages and we look at these historical accounts, what we see is that it wasn't Moses on his own. There were more that are a part of that story. And I think it's important to note that was by God's design. In fact, when God approached Moses in that burning bush and invited him to go on this journey of leading his people out of slavery, when he invited him, Moses didn't want to do it. He doubted himself as a leader, as somebody who could speak before people. He had his own reservations. Then when we often think of Moses as this incredible leader, but Moses didn't want to do it. In fact, he tried to talk God out of it. At one point, he says to God, "Who am I that I should go to the Pharaoh and bring the children of Israel out of Egypt?" Because he's like, I'm nobody. I'm going to do this on my own. And God's response to him was this. His response to him was this. He said, "But I will be with you." He says to Moses. Well, that answer wasn't good enough for Moses. In fact, he with his doubt, he says, I'm not eloquent. I can't speak. These people aren't going to listen to me. I stutter. I have issues. I have my own reservations of this. And God, what I love about this is God had two responses to Moses in this moment. He said, number one, he says, how am I going to speak to these people if I'm not so eloquent? God says, I think you need to understand this. Who made your mouth? God says, I am the one that made your mouth. I will speak through you. And he says, number two, is I have people lined up for you. Your brother Aaron, who's going to be coming to you, he will be there to help you. And we see this time and time again. And now catching up to verse 17, where now chapter 17, where they've been in the wilderness. They've escaped the clutches of the Egyptians. They're released from slavery. They're wandering in the wilderness. They're surviving off of God's provision day after day after day. Manna from heaven, meat in the evening, provision in the day, water from the rock. Like incredible experiences that are taking place. This trek that has been done in stages, because when we think about Moses, we think about him leading a nation, but we don't gather, or we don't understand the size of this nation. The estimates are up to 3 million people were on this journey. You can't tell me one person can do this. There had to be more. And in chapter 17, it leads to a place where we see a battle taking place. Now, from our viewpoint, it seems like very much a physical battle that's taking place. See, what would happen is, as they're trying to survive day after day, these people are going and they have to stop and wait for everybody else to come to catch up. As they're waiting for people to catch up, oftentimes what they would experience is they would be attacked during that time by other people. And this particular time in Exodus 17, beginning in verse 8, I want to read this, and I want you to just picture this in your mind. It says, the Amalekites came and attacked the Israelites at Rephidim. Moses said to Joshua, choose some of our men to go out and fight the Amalekites. Tomorrow I will stand on top of the hill with the staff of God in my hands. So Joshua fought the Amalekites as Moses had ordered. And Moses, Aaron, and Hur went to the top of the hill. As long as Moses held his hands up, the Israelites were winning. But whenever he lowered his hands, the Amalekites were winning. And when Moses' hands grew tired, they took a stone and they put it under him, and he sat on it. And Aaron and Hur held his hands up, one on one side and one on the other, so that his hands remained steady till sunset. So Joshua overcame the Amalekite army with the sword. Now I read this passage and with the full understanding that there's a ton of stuff that I have a lot of questions about, right? Like there's a whole lot that just took place with not a whole lot of understanding. But the one thing that I pull away from this is that we see a physical battle taking place, but I believe that we can't make any mistake about it. This is 100% a spiritual battle, right? Like the idea that when Moses' hands are up in honoring God and holding the staff of God up, the Israelites are winning. They're taking ground. And when his hands come down, the Amalekites come back and they take ground back. That's not coincidence. That's not a remote control in his hand. That is quite simply a spiritual battle that is taking place throughout all of it. Why God chose to do it this way, I don't quite understand. But what I take out of this and what I see in this, although we see physical situations taking place, it's best to believe that there are spiritual implications taking place at the same time. That this is all happening. And I believe it also brings us to an assurance that this spiritual battle that we face, it does not need to be alone. Now listen, today I don't know where you find yourself and what spiritual battle you may be facing at this moment. But I myself can rewind and even to this day I see spiritual battles that are taking place that my arms get tired. That sometimes it feels a whole lot easier if I just put them down. And maybe for you, you feel that. That I can boldly hold my hands up through pain and through suffering and digging in. I can do this. I can trust God in this, and I can pray and I can seek and I can continue to pursue through this. But let's be real honest. There's times where this gets real hard. And I know the times that I've dropped my arms in pursuit after Jesus in this, in trust and faith and seeking after him, I have felt the enemy take back ground in my life. I felt it. And I believe that you probably have too. So this tells me that, listen, it can't be just me. It can't be just you. We have to have people who are there to fight on our behalf. We have to have people that are here for us, that see what it is. So what does that mean? What does that look like in our life? What I believe is that what we need to be doing with this in mind is that we need to be looking for people to be in our lives that will hold our arms up when we're spiritually tired. We need to have people in our life that we would trust that will come in and go, you don't have to do this alone. Let's raise those arms together. They'll sit a rock underneath of us. We each of us need to find people in our lives that will hold our arms up, hold our hands up when we're in this battle. And I want to be really clear. This is not for everyone that's involved in your life. This position, this place, this person is someone who recognizes the importance of the battle that you're in. It's someone who understands the implications of the outcomes of the battle and are willing to be in it with you. To recognize what's at stake in these moments, of these times of needing the Lord to step in. These are people that understand this. And not everybody understands that. Not everybody sees it that way, but there's people that do, and you need to have them in your life. And not only was this Moses, but we see this in Jesus' life as well. In the moment that Jesus was stepping into the biggest fight of his life up to date, he invited people into it. You won't see the scripture on the screen, but I'm going to read it for you. Matthew 26, it says this: Then Jesus went with his disciples to a place called Gethsemane. And he said to them, sit here while I go over there and pray. He took Peter and the two sons of Zebedee along with him. And he began to be sorrowful and troubled. And then he said to them, my soul is overwhelmed with sorrow to the point of death. Stay here and keep watch with me. And going a little further, he fell with his face to the ground and prayed, my Father, if it is possible, may this cup be taken from me. Yet not as I will, but as you will. In a moment that is of the most intimate moment of his life, a moment where he is about to enter in the biggest battle that he is going to face. And it wasn't one of just physical limitation, but it was a spiritual battle that he was entering into. He invited those who were closest to him to be near him in this moment where he prayed and sought the Father. Sought the Lord's strength and courage in that moment. Listen, if Jesus seeks this out from ordinary, everyday people, who are we to say that we don't need that as well? Who are we to say we are strong enough to do this on our own? The truth is we're not. We can only hold our arms up for so long. We can only continue that for so long. Now, what I love about what I'm reading and what I'm seeing in this is that it's not just one person that we're inviting in. It's more. We see Jesus invite more people in. We see Moses inviting her and Aaron in. It wasn't just her and Aaron either. There was Joshua who actually physically fought the battle. There was Jethro, his father-in-law, who came along and corrected him. It said you can't do this on your own. It's the judges that he brought in that would help him along the way. There were so many people that were involved in all of this. It wasn't singularly Moses with the power of God. It was Moses with the power of God and a whole lot of people that were tied in deeply with him, that had something that was riding on it, that saw the implications of what was taking place. And so the idea of we finding people that will hold our hands up, I also believe that we need to seek after a corner team. What's a corner team? In boxing, when it's in between rounds, the fighter goes back and sits down on a stool in the corner, and then you see a group of people come around him. You see a group of people come around the fighter and begin to take care of and talk to. Who are these people? Well, I'm glad you asked. The one person who it is, I went through these and I started looking, who are these people? And the first person that comes up is the chief second. And what in the world is that? This is the person, when you think of a corner man, this is probably the person that you think of. This is the person who usually stands in the ring facing the fighter in between rounds. This is the one who is encouraging, who is providing instructions and guidance. This is the one who's getting passionate and is spitting in the face of the fighter during this time because of how passionate they are of what needs to take place. This is the person who is there for encouragement, to spur on, to be somebody who he sees eye to eye with, face to face with, saying, I'm in this with you. Not only that, but there's the head corner man. Well, who's the head corner man? The head corner man is the one who is before all of this takes place, is the one that oversees the overall strategy. With the fighter, has studied the enemy, has studied the opponent, has made a strategy to battle against, and in the midst of it is also looking at how the strategy needs to change and adjust between rounds. This is the one who's gone before and is set up. The next one is a second corner man. Who is the second corner man? The second corner man is the one that provides water, squirts that water in the mouth, wipes the fighter's face, and manages the mouthpiece. This is the person who's providing for physical need in the moment, is providing what is needed to continue on. The substance, what absolutely is needed. The fourth person that can be found in a corner is the cut man. Now, this person is the one that focuses on stopping the bleeding and applying petroleum jelly to the face to begin to tend to any abrasions so that they can continue fighting. This is a person who's involved in the healing process of the fighter. Now, we look at that, and I look at that, and I go, oh my gosh. We need these people in our lives. We need that head corner man who's been a part of discipling our walk, who has walked alongside of us and said, hey, this is what it looks like. This is how you know it's the enemy. This is the one that we can talk to when it's really getting rough, and they're like, hey, maybe this is the adjustment we need to make. But we also need the person that we have face to face, eyeball to eyeball, the person that we give permission to be so passionate about us continuing to stay in the fight and winning the fight that the spit is just flying out of their mouths. That they're in our corner. They're saying, you can do this. Keep fighting. Keep fighting. These people we need in our life. We need that second corner man, the one that's helping provide for the physical need that we have. The one that comes and help us to continue to actually be able to stand up and walk out. And we need that cut man because life is tough, man. Life is tough. We get bloodied, we get beaten. We need people that we can trust to be there to help us in healing, to help us to continue on in the fight, to not get disqualified. We need to allow these type of people in our lives. We need them. We absolutely need them. It's interesting. I'm writing this and I'm considering this and I'm preaching to you, but I want you to know there's a huge mirror in front of me right now. I need to be reminded. I can't do this on my own. It's interesting because God's sovereignty and God's amazing timing, I went and this is an iPad, by the way, and I flipped this thing open this morning before first service, and the first thing I saw was a text message from somebody that I shared that I was sharing this message with, that I was going to preach you this message, and this guy texted me and said, "I'm praying for you, man." Those are the type of people you need in your life. To know that when you're going into something, that they're praying with you. They're praying for you. They're in this. They're in this. And I'm here to tell you, you need it. We all need it. Ecclesiastes 4, 9 through 12 just reaffirms this point. Two are better than one because they have a good return for their labor. If either of them falls down, one can help the other up. But pity anyone who falls and who has no one to help them up. Also, if two lie down together, they will keep warm. But how can one keep warm alone? Though one may be overpowered, two can defend themselves. A cord of 3 strands is not quickly broken. This is usually used in weddings, but I'm here to tell you, friends, it's in everyday life. We need to be entangled with people who have God entangled in their lives. Because all they will do is strengthen us. And for you, you're like, I don't even know how that happens. How do we even do this? How do I find these people? And I understand that's a tough question to answer, because the reality is we are all people, we're all human beings, we're all flawed and failed. Nobody's perfect. And you've probably been burnt by people before. You've invited people into your corner, you learned that maybe they weren't really in your corner to begin with. But I'm here to tell you, it's as necessary as it comes. As scary as that may be, it's as necessary as it's needed. And even though I'll return back to this. Let me go back to Jesus' experience when he invited his friends in, those closest to him, when he went to go and pray and he asked them to keep watch, is when he returned to his disciples. Did he find them praying? No. He found them sleeping. Jesus still trusted them. And these people that he invited in became huge reasons as to why we're here today. It's people that he still trusted. They are flawed and failed. And that's understandable because we're flawed and failed. So how do we begin to qualify people to be those people in our lives, even though we're flawed and failed? Because that's scary. I think this piece is probably this is the most important piece that you need, is that we can't forget that God is in our corner. God is in our corner. As much as we would love for our people to be perfect and never fail us, the truth is they probably will. That doesn't make them bad. That just makes them human. But even if we feel like people have failed us, the one thing that we absolutely 100% need to grab hold of, God won't. God won't fail us because he can't. It's impossible. God will not fail us. Will it look like we want it to look like? I don't know. Probably not. But it doesn't mean that God has failed us. If you stood here and sang the songs that we sang this morning, you sang to that very truth. You lifted your voice to that very truth, to trusting that God he's the answer to all of this. But yet he still wants us to do this together. You know, in Exodus, earlier on in Exodus 3, there's this moment where Moses understands his failings and his weaknesses and understands all of this, and he realizes that even the things that he's done in the past, and he realizes that the Israelites, they may not be willing to listen to him. Like, I just want you to think about this. This older man is going to walk up and say, I'm here to deliver you out of slavery. Slavery in which they had been in for like 400 years. And here comes Moses showing up and saying, I'm here to take you out of this. Right, yeah, okay. So he goes to God and he says, Moses said to God, suppose I go to the Israelites and say to them, the God of your fathers has sent me to you. And they ask me, what is his name? Then what shall I tell them? God said to Moses, I am who I am. This is what you were to say to the Israelites, that I am has sent me to you. What does that mean? It means that he is exactly what we need in our present need. He's exactly where we need him to be when he needs to be there. He is the answer to all of it. He is the one that is the solution to all of this. Even if it doesn't feel, I'm telling you, he is the answer to it. Even when we don't understand it, he is the answer to it. I love this from the psalmist in Psalm 18. He says, I love you, Lord, my strength. The Lord is my rock, my fortress, my deliverer. God is my rock in whom I take refuge, my shield and the horn of my salvation, my stronghold. That's a lot. But he's every one of those things to us. He is those things that we need. And he is the answer, but it is still very, very apparent as we look through scriptures is that it's not just us and God. It's God, us, and others. That's why Jesus says these two are the greatest commands. To love the Lord your God with all your heart, your mind, your soul, and your strength. And to love others as yourself. It's not meant to be done alone, friends. Even in our flaws and even in our failings and even in our imperfection, we are meant to do this with one another. Our lives are meant to be intertwined and tangled up with God at the very center of it. And when that's the case, we are not easily broken. Listen, I don't know what your fight is today. I don't know where you're at. I don't know how your arms are feeling at the moment. Whether you feel like you're strong and I'm holding this thing up, or whether they're dropping and you're fighting with all you have not to let them down. Listen to me. You need to get people to hold your arms up. You need people. How do you do that? Guys, we're entering into this season of the year that is, I think, of utmost importance. And many times we find ourselves way too busy to do what we're about to talk about, which is to get together, to be in a group with one another. Nobody's perfect in this. But I think the unifying thing that we can experience in doing something like Treasured or Fight Club or a men's group or From This Day Forward or any of those things, Grief Share, all of these opportunities that are about ready to, the doors are going to open wide here pretty soon. The uniting thing is that everybody is looking for this. I need someone to hold my hands up. It takes trust. It takes faith. And nobody's perfect. But it's meant for all of us. I encourage you to do that. That's where I found strength. That's where I found some corner men in my life. And I believe that you can too. So what do we do? What if a bunch of people decided I'm going to have people in my life to help me hold my hands up? what's going to happen? You will begin to experience what I truly believe Jesus has offered for us, which is a full and abundant life. Because you have people in it who are looking to the same thing. We need people that will be in our face and tell us that we need to get our eyes on Jesus. That's what we need. So what do you say? Why don't we do this together? Let's pray. Father, thank you.